Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 185. Hope you're all having an amazing weekend so far. We have so much to cover today, so we're going to get straight into things. But if you are new here, welcome to the Wolfpack. It's so great to have you here with us. And if you've yet to get access to our Discord server, just go ahead and send me a direct message here on Patreon by clicking on my profile picture, and then it will bring a prompt up that says send a message to me. And then you could just let me know your Discord username, and I will reply back to you in a Patreon direct message with the Discord server invite. Please don't comment below this post or email me or do anything other than what I just recommended to do in order to get access to our Discord server. So with that out of the way, also just wanted to let you know that next week I'll be doing a What I'm Investing in special. So you do not need to vote on this week's altcoins because that will be taken care of for the upcoming Red Pill podcast. And for all the votes we got on XDC and Jupiter and VeChain, etc., I'll be covering those next week. So stay tuned for that. You guys are probably already well aware of my free crypto course I released a couple weeks ago. Definitely check that out. I shared an update at the beginning of the last Red Pill I released last Sunday, so the link will be in that description box and everything, and we're not going to be focusing on that today. So, as you're all aware, we had Yom Kippur yesterday, the Day of Atonement. And remember that the war declared by Israel last year was on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War back in 1973. And this 50th anniversary was significant because it immediately followed Jubilee, the 50-year cycle. After 7 cycles of 7 Shemitah years, you have 49 years. And then after that year, on the 50th year, they practice biblical Jubilee, which was from Rosh Hashanah in 2022 until Rosh Hashanah in 2023. That was in September last year. And this is exactly why they waited until October 2023, the following month, and specifically on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, to perform this ritual on the world stage that we're currently still experiencing. And now we've made it through the recent solar eclipse on Rosh Hashanah. We're now officially in the Hebrew year of 5785. We just had Yom Kippur yesterday on the 10th of Tishri in the Hebrew calendar. And since I brought that up, some of you might remember earlier in the year, I kept mentioning how this Gregorian year of 2024 was synchronized with the 1940 year regarding the Hebrew calendar. All the holidays in 1940 synchronize with 2024, notably Rosh Hashanah, which you'll see here, October 2nd, Elul 29, final day, moving into Tishri 1, Rosh Hashanah. It's the same thing here this year, and everything else synchronizes as well, including Yom Kippur on the 11th and 12th of October. Again, the 12th was yesterday. Well, it was the same in 1940. Now, the significance of this is because 1940 was also the year of the dragon. And we're in the midst of that popular event. Back then, we were in the midst of that popular event called World War II. So you see where I'm going with this. Again, this is mostly recap, but it's important things to bring up because I've kind of given this particular information some time to stew, and here we are. I mean, things really got ramped up at the start of eclipse season. I'm sure you could all agree with everything that's been going down in Lebanon. Over here, I have the significant events of World War II. I talked about this a lot in the beginning of this year. Again, kind of held off on it because as things start to get really, really serious on the world stage, you know, we just got to let the events play out and then match whatever, you know, we're getting in this current timeline, and that will reveal to us clues of what's to come next. We just have to adjust the players, the characters, you know. It's no different than looking at the rise and fall of an entertainer. You know, at one point, everyone talked about one particular entertainer like Michael Jackson or Kurt Cobain or Elvis, and then those people's, that archetype, I should say, gets replaced in the modern day by another character. And believe it or not, all of these stories are just tied to mythology. That's the way it all works because that's the way the elites operate. But anyways, let's get back to this. One interesting thing to mention was that in 1940, we had not only the synchronicity between our Hebrew calendar and the Gregorian calendar, and also the Chinese year of the dragon, but we also had the election on the same exact date, November 5th, 1940. FDR was reelected. And you guys remember when I decoded this, how on Roosevelt's Wikipedia page, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a picture of him at 2 years old, dressed up like a girl. Mamma mia. If my mom did this to me, I'd be fuming. I'd be angry. I don't understand this. This could not have been a trend to dress up your boy with a fucking wig and this is unbelievable. Anyways, considering this concept of re-election, when you keep that in mind, Roosevelt re-elected as a U.S. president, because we know that Biden isn't in the race anymore and Harris was never officially the president, so the only synchronicity would be the re-election of Trump. And remember, the USA wasn't in the war just yet during Roosevelt's re-election in 1940. It was over a full year later, December of 1941, during the Year of the Snake, that the Pearl Harbor ritual happened. And then USA declared war on Japan. Hitler allegedly declared war on the USA. And then right before the end of the Year of the Snake in 1942, the first American forces arrived in Great Britain. So we had multiple events to confirm that the U.S. entered war during the Year of the Snake, which again, in 1917, during World War I, well, that was the Year of the Snake, and that was also the year that the USA got involved. The same thing with 1965 with Vietnam, 2001, etc. And during the Year of the Horse in 1942, Japanese Americans were sent to relocation centers. Good. See that right here in April. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I have a theory that I wanted to share. And that's what's going to happen with this recent flood of immigrants into the USA during Biden's term. And I hope you all know I'm not picking sides here. This isn't like I believe one president did a bad job and therefore we could blame them. The presidents have no power. They're like the base layer of the cake, all right? There's so many more layers above them that have way more power and influence on the global situation. But anywho, if that's news to you, I'm sorry for the wake-up call. But assuming that many of you are already conscious to this and you know about the powers that be, we call them elite, or the apex predator is probably a better term to use, just for the exoteric kind of point out, if you will, Biden has been president, and during this last 4 years, it's been an overwhelming amount of immigrants entering the USA. It's specifically become even more noticeable this year. I have no issue with any of this stuff. It is what it is, right? It's the chess game that the elite play, and it's not just USA that's going through this. Many, many other countries are experiencing this. Now, with that being said, just getting back to my theory regarding this recent flood of immigrants into the USA, that's where the FEMA camps will come into play in 2026 during the Year of the Horse. So my intuition is telling me this immigration crisis is temporary, and it was, of course, intentional. It's a chess move. And just like any grandmaster chess player would tell you, sometimes you have to sacrifice some pieces to confuse your opponent into thinking that you're a weak player. But in actuality, you're just scheming and thinking many moves ahead. But getting back to this timeline of 1940 specifically, and the end of the Year of the Dragon, connection to this year of the dragon in the Hebrew calendar in 1940, synchronizing with this year of 2024. It's making me look into this October-November timeframe, of course, naturally, because that's what we're moving into. And we have a couple significant events, such as Italy invading Greece, and there was the Battle of Britain in November 15th. And please, guys, right now, mark your calendars for November 15th, and you're going to see why later. This is a very important date. But we had the Battle of Britain, November 15th in 1940, some serious air raids on Coventry, England. Then we also have Hungary and Romania joining the Axis powers. Slovakia also joined as well after the disintegration of Czechoslovakia, meaning these nations joined Germany, or the National Socialists, as well as Italy, ran by Mussolini, and then you also have Japan. So just consider Japan, Italy, Germany, and joining that would be Hungary, Romania, Slovakia. Okay, you kind of see what this feels like in today's terms with today's player characters, today's, names on the world stage. So then the year was capped off with more air raids on London. So just keep in mind, a big important city. We're not saying London in 2024. This was back then, but we're using the clues and we're considering the player characters, and that's what we're going to do now in this part of the decode. So what this tells me is that my theory of Turkey and Egypt joining the war that's going on now is likely going to happen very soon. It's in the process of happening. And these nations will be going against Israel, of course. And here today, we just have the script is flipped. Instead of Germany ran by Hitler, you have the quote-unquote bad guy is Israel ran by Netanyahu. Not my opinion. It's just what the world stage has been telling you all, okay? You all know my truth on the matter is that it's just Zionism. And it's not isolated to Israel. It's not isolated to Jews. It's the whole global order, which is dressed in many different outfits, wearing different colors, represented by different flags. And this is all part of their chess game. It's to make you think that one guy's the bad guy. And when you go back and learn about World War II, you'll get the other side of the story if you dig a little deeper. And you'll see it wasn't really just that one bad guy. But again, now we're just working with a flipped script. Whilst that Germany against the Jews conversation was going on back then, now it seems to be the Jews against the whole world, And it's just the way their scripting goes. Everything is opposites. I look at it like an Ouroboros. It's the snake eating its tail. So we're at that other we're at the end of it in many ways. And this will probably be, and this is a positive thing that I'm saying right now. I know it's only 13 or so minutes into this podcast and it's already very powerful and has some very powerful information, but I want to let you know, this is likely the last war the world will have. We're going to be moving into a very technocratic, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, a world where pain and suffering will be able to bypass through tech, okay? It used to be drugs and numbing yourself that way. There's a new numbing mechanism that's being rolled out underneath us, okay? So think about it. Virtual reality prisons and re-education camps. If you don't think that's in the process of coming to, a theater near you, then again, another wake-up call. This will be the last war ever fought in this world, in this timeline, before whatever cataclysm happens, of course. But I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I see this all as very positive. It is just the way it is. Think of it like shedding a skin. Think of it like the butterfly or the caterpillar is breaking through its chrysalis and it's becoming a butterfly. Okay, it's a necessity in the way things are going. And ultimately, don't think I'm saying that war is a necessity. What I'm saying is the shedding of the skin or the caterpillar breaking through the chrysalis and becoming a butterfly. That's the necessity. Now, what it's going on for some people is blood, death, destruction, killing, etc. But what could be going on for another group of people is the thing called enlightenment, the expansion of consciousness. And whilst you expand consciously, you start to be in better places at better times. You start to be more quote unquote lucky, and things start working out better for you. Why? Because you listen to your intuition. All right? But let's move on. It's pretty powerful words there, I believe. So one other thing to mention, since I brought up Netanyahu in Israel, just keep in mind that his birthday is coming up soon on October 21st. I wonder how Israel will celebrate that. You want to know something crazy? Netanyahu turns 75 on October 21st. And October 21st happens to be a 75 double-digit date numerology. This is a wild synchronicity. So as I mentioned over 6 months ago, after Lebanon, next is Turkey and Egypt. And with Turkey joining the conversation, you essentially have the Balkan nations joining the conversation, because that's the potential that this power move has. And this is something I brought up last year before the start of the year of the rabbit, actually. I mentioned how there's going to be a squeeze with what's going on in Israel on one side and what's going on with Russia, Ukraine on the other side, putting the Balkan nations in the middle of this vice grip. And late 2025 and all of 2026 is not looking good for the Balkans. And it'll become obvious with Turkey's involvement in this war. Although Turkey's not technically considered a Balkan nation, it's a piece of it is. And the area that it's located, the geography of it, that's kind of my outlook. So I hope this makes sense. Because if you looked up a list of Balkan nations, you might not see Turkey included, but they are. So this is something I warned about all the way back in early 2023. It had everything to do with the Shemitah and the Jubilee combo post C19 ritual. And I talked about the Shemitah and the Jubilee a little bit earlier in today's podcast. And here we are, moments away from Turkey joining the conversation in a very, very serious way. So just keep this stuff in mind, stay protected, follow your intuition, and you know where not to go on vacation. Also, as many of you are aware, we're less than a week out from an upcoming almost lunar eclipse on October 17th, as we enter the 42nd week of the year tomorrow. And that 42 is a key number specifically for this year of 2024, where the number 24 was our main theme, making the mirror number of 24, 42, equally as significant. And since I mentioned that tomorrow is the start of the 42nd week of the year, we of course have to recap the significance of tomorrow being October 14th, and something I've talked about often. I've been bringing this date up a lot lately since it has this 68 double-digit date numerology, and I call the 68 date numerology the war code. And we've seen multiple 68 date numerology rituals this year even, and many throughout the past century. So make sure to check out my Instagram over here at WatersAbove without the O in above, and check out the video with this thumbnail over here that says the war code. This will be filling you in a lot on everything I've taught about the number 68 in a really short to the point video. And make sure to follow over there for more videos like that, because I will be sharing these high quality short clips more often over on this Instagram, and I appreciate your support. So we have tomorrow with this 68 war code, and remember, the last 68 double-digit date numerology we had was on the 15th of September, and that was the second assassination attempt of Trump in Florida. Now, key word, Florida. And then we had Hurricane Milton in Florida, and that hit Florida specifically 3 weeks and 3 days after the assassination attempt in Florida. That's your 3-3 code. I've talked about these 33s a lot this year, but what's wild is October 9th, I want to get to that really quickly. October 9th is the day leaving 83 days left in the year, and Milton equals 83 in basic English ordinal gematria. This is the day for landfall, or when it really, really caused the problems that it was predicted to cause. So got that 83 days left in the year. Hurricane Milton hits on that exact date. And I mean, guys, how many times have I spoke about the number 83 and 38 this year? Hundreds of times for the year of the dragon. Because 38 esoterically is 3/8. 8 plus 8 plus 8 equals 24. And that's our key number for this year. And look at how Milton gives you the 24 in Chaldean cipher. And the day that Hurricane Helene made landfall initially in Florida was on September 26th. And if you take from the 26th to tomorrow, the 14th, we're going to see that, not including the end date, these are 2 weeks and 4 days apart. So you have another 24 code. And we did, in fact, have that negative energy coming in on October 10th last week. I know you guys remember me bringing up that date, and that was noticeable in the charts, but also we had this Hurricane Milton event. So even though not on the exact day, but the day after is really what matters, right? And also, of course, to all the people that are out there that are affected by that, it's really unfortunate to hear. I mean, it feels like the New World Order is just not going to stop, right? Like pretty fucked up, man. I mean, pretty fucking sad. But we are, I mean, in that moment right now where that's all they have left is messing with the weather. We know they control it. So that's really one of their biggest tools. And then you can't blame any particular person, right? But you guys know the truth. So we did, in fact, have that negative energy coming in on the charts on October 10th last week, obviously with Hurricane Milton, and a lot of other smaller events going on. And it seems that the Trump ritual last week was really more about Elon, with the interview that he did with Tucker Carlson over on X, where he was giggling like a schoolgirl for like the first 5 minutes. It was incredibly awkward. Do not recommend watching it. It was an absolute waste of fucking time. But the first 5 minutes, he's just like Googling over Trump, you know, and talking about how he's going to go to jail if Trump doesn't win because of all the things that he said about Harris. And it's just like really amazing political theater, you know. Anyways, regarding the markets, we did get that push down for Bitcoin on the 10th and for the altcoins, and now we're moments away from kicking off the 42nd week of this year, one of our most important numbers for this year. 2442, and we know that Bitcoin has the 42 code all over it. I've talked about it for years now, but we have Satoshi Nakamoto, more importantly, giving you this 181. That's the 42nd prime number, and Satoshi is Saturn. Saturn is 42. Remember, Bitcoin's all-time high last cycle into the year 2021 was 69K. Now, speaking of Saturn, because that has the 93 code, tomorrow, October 14th, remember, we're still talking about this day, it's tied to the first assassination attempt on Trump on the 13th of July by 93 days. And remember, Saturn is the Grim Reaper. Saturn is Father Time. Saturn is death. So with the 68 code syncing up with tomorrow, and his last assassination attempt being on the 68. We also had the assassination of Abraham Raisi on May 19th. That was a 68 double-digit date numerology, the former president of Iran. Excuse me if I didn't pronounce his name right, but it's gonna be likely that an event happens. And the fact that it's also Columbus Day, the exoteric Columbus Day, which, by the way, the markets will not be closed for, but then they've started calling it Indigenous Peoples Day. It's like you can definitely tell they're gonna do some shit, you know. And if you're in Australia right now, you're already hearing this on Monday. And I'm not really trying to get so deep into the predictive analysis on this. It's moreover just showing you that there's been trigger events on specific date numerologies, and we can't deny that, right? All the 64 connections to Trump. And yeah, so just considering that we have the 68 syncing up for tomorrow, the war code, and a couple of these other connections that I've shown you. I wouldn't be surprised if there's another attempt on his life before the election. And if there is to be, that is the only day I would see it happening based on the code. And again, we're talking about an attempt before the election, because after the election is another story. And I'm not calling for another assassination attempt. Honestly, I'm just letting you know if there was to be one, it would make the most sense if it was on this particular day, tomorrow. But I'm not calling for one, because I personally think that the apex predator has accomplished most of their goal here with building up as much drama as possible for this election. I'm sure many of you agree. Now, we'll have to see how November goes, of course, and we'll be talking about this more in an upcoming podcast. But I already started decoding this upcoming U.S. election in Red Pill podcast 180, I believe. So Red Pill 180 just last month. Check that out if you haven't already. Now, lastly, we have October 17th. This is the upcoming full moon. It will be an almost lunar eclipse on the 17th day of the month. It also has let me show you really quickly. We have October 17th, 17th day of the month, 17 standard date numerology, and the mirror of 17 is 71, and that also happens to be the double-digit date numerology. Remember, 17 is the 7th prime number. So 7 is hidden within that 17. It's also the number 7 with the power number 1, but anyways, don't want to go too deep right now. It's all tied back to the 7s, and I've been talking a lot about the power of this number 7. And with October 17th, it's actually 14 days after Rosh Hashanah, as you can see right here. So we always talk about Rosh Hashanah tied to the 7 because it's the start of Tishri, the 7th month in their system. Well, 14 is 2 sevens. 7 plus 7 equals 14. And especially now, since Rosh Hashanah, we're in the Hebrew year 5785, and that's 25. That reduces to 7, 2 plus 5. And perhaps some of you have heard of the murder code, right? 187. Well, October, it should be octo, is 8 in Latin. Like octagon has 8 sides. You have 817 or 178. So you have an anagram of the murder code. And I know Logan over at Decode Your Reality, he really likes to look at numbers this way. And I do too. I see there to be a lot of power in mirroring numbers because that's how alchemy works. And then also seeing the code just not put in perfect sequence, it would be no different than solving a puzzle, right? So just think about that. Kind of interesting to bring up that 187 in the murder code hidden into this Gregorian time frame days before Netanyahu's birthday. It's going to get weird. So it'll be interesting if they ritualize this upcoming lunar eclipse with another weather-related incident. That I'm more expecting than an assassination attempt of Trump, okay? Because this back-to-back ritual of Helene and Milton, well, that was no joke, obviously, and they did not prep the public for Helene. Especially, they didn't prep them as much as they did for Milton. And I'm sure many of you noticed that leading up to Milton, they made it seem like it was going to be 10 times worse than Helene, and they really hyped it up as if it was going to be the end times in Florida. And I'm not to downplay it because it was serious and people did die and a lot of people still don't have power. But I'm just saying, right, from the narrative perspective in the news, no coverage on Helene. Still, it's fucking devastating that they didn't cover it all. But with Milton, it was just 24/7 all over X, all over everywhere. No one stopped talking about it. So this to me feels like they wanted the attention there for a reason, because something potentially bigger is coming. And that's just my intuition. That's the way I decode. That's the way I think. When they put a bunch of attention on something and then ignore something else, it's all by design. It's a script. And yes, it's evil. We know that. And maybe some of you know we've had all this aurora activity lately. People are actually believing that this is the natural aurora borealis, which is touching as south as Louisiana. Well, I don't want to rain on anyone's parade, but this isn't the naturally occurring northern lights. It's HARP, High Frequency Active Aurora Research Program. It's not the northern lights. So perhaps the next event can be another hurricane or flooding or perhaps a blackout caused by something weather related while we're in Sidereal Libra. Just to pull up the chart real quick, we have this line right here. So Libra represented by the scales, it's an air sign. So just so you know, Libra and Sidereal is from October 16th till November 15th. This is the day before the lunar eclipse. And that's a very key date because I've been talking about this November 15th full moon for a while now. Even in my year of the dragon analysis of the stock market, I showed a very clear pattern that the market tends to have a short-term correction around 10 days or a little after, let's just call it 10 days or a little under 2 weeks after the US election. And that aligns with November 15th, which will be the full moon in November. And also the last day of the sun in the sign of Libra. Again, utilizing sidereal astrology. And for those who use tropical, we're currently in Libra until October 22nd. So keep that in mind because between now and the end of this month, I've been talking about this a lot, especially when considering my my Saturn retrograde analysis, which I've covered in recent Red Pills as well. So we will have Saturn station retrograde until, guess when? I'll give you a moment to think about it. November 15th. So this upcoming November full moon is going to be crazy. It's a full moon in Taurus, which is tied to finance. And Taurus is ruled by Venus, just like the sign of Libra we were talking about a moment ago is ruled by Venus. So it's all making sense now why we see these patterns in the market over 100 years of chart history for the S&P. So this is why I really feel, based on everything I've compiled here, that the November 15th until January 29th, 2025 timeframe, which will be Chinese New Year of 2025, start of the year of the snake, I feel like that time period between November 15th and January 29th, 2025 will be a very bullish time frame, especially with that Mercury retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius, which is between November 25th and December 15th. But these are all things that I'll actually cover in depth in my upcoming Black Moon Decoded, which I plan to release in November. And I'll update you all on that release date as soon as I have the decode finished. But that will be available here for Patreon supporters probably in the first week of November. It's kind of my way of being like, let's not get so caught up in the election thing. But I know, it's impossible to keep the attention off of the apex predator. Anywho, it will be probably released in the first week of November. I'll see how things go with that, with release. Maybe I'll aim for November 1st, which is the upcoming new moon. I think that'd be a really good time to launch that. Gives me a little bit of time to work on it, and it will actually be my first dedicated decode just to a specific decode outside of a red pill since Year of the Snake or Year of the Dragon Decoded. So, damn. You guys know I don't mess around with these presentations. I try to make them really high quality, and it's been tough for me lately, though. I did the free course, 2 versions of the free course, one for the public, one for Patreon. I'm still keeping up with everything I've been doing. I did fucking 10 interviews over the last 30 days. I have more interviews coming. I've just been a busy bee. I've been rebranding, making my website look nicer, changes there. Started this new social media project. I have WatersAbove University coming out January 2025. I have Trinity Masterclass I'm planning to release before the middle of November. It's I might need to clone myself. I might need one of those Tesla robots I could jack into my consciousness. It could help me with some... I'm just fucking around. I would never do that. Let's get into the charts. Gotta have fun though, right? So we're going to be looking at the... got a couple charts here that I actually want to touch base on. But first and foremost, we are so close to the S&P hitting my key target of 5,900 points, which aligns with Dragon in Gematria 59, that'd be wild. Be wild. Guys, I talked about this before the start of the Year of the Dragon. I talked about this. I wrote this live. 24% gain for the year 2024. Crazy. And the 24% gain aligns with 5,900 points synchronized with Dragon. Crazy. We're so fucking close, dude. 2% away, less than 2% away. Wild call. I think we could go higher too. I think yeah. Even the Russell is like about to break out too. This is crazy to watch, man. I know the earlier part of this podcast seemed very bearish because I'm talking about everything like in one big symphonic decode, but I want you all to know everything I'm seeing, everything I'm forecasting, and I think all of this stuff comes back to the same energy source anyways, so it's about being on top of things, and not being emotionally reactive to it is very, very important. So let's get into some of these Bitcoin charts that I have. This is a super important one that you all know here. I've been keeping you updated on often, and it's these 3 key points of this falling trend line, which we haven't been dealing with too much since last month, but then we have this key support level that I have, the horizontal support level. So falling trend line's not as critical. Key support is, and then clearly this falling resistance level. So our key support has been holding on this recent micro W pattern. I really like to see that, especially you see right here, guys. If I zoom in, you have, look, deep correction, slight lower low, bear trap, come back up to this key support line, rejection, short term, and then we bounced higher. This was huge because we went higher than the pivot high the prior month. This looks like a micro trend reversal, so I hope you're following along with me here. Now, after this rejection point, we come back to retest that initial rejection level, and we've been holding it since. So what does that mean in plain English? If this is a W in the making, we could quickly do a measured move, show you. We'll play the extremes right now because we're in an extreme market and we're looking at Bitcoin. Measure that off of the true neckline, which we're kind of back testing as a support now, and that breaks you higher. So that would be 2 drives higher. You'd have your September highs, then you would have higher highs in October, and then this would kind of make this the new macro support here around 54K. So I just call this the key support because it's kind of holding in the larger conversation, the 7 to 8 month sideways horizontal trading range. But we've been looking at things locally because it seems like we're in the final moments of this accumulation range, right? So this measured move pretty much takes you back to the highs of July. If we were to break higher than this September high and get back to 69 or 70K, then it would really feel like this was all just a half a year plus of backtesting the prior distributional top. Gorgeous. It's exactly what we want to see. And if we were to, and if that is to come to fruition, which it's more likely to, that would be a much healthier, launch into price discovery than the one we experienced last cycle. This was insanely unhealthy for us to just break straight through. And then we had this very deep mid-cycle correction followed by a double top. This was ugly. And when we back tested the prior cycle, we went as deep as some of the levels that were in the earlier stage of 2018. It would have been better if we just did this over here instead of not. So now we're in a much healthier cycle, in my opinion, for the Bitcoin chart because we didn't just blast through straight to 80, 90, 100. And I warned about that back in Q1. I said, you don't want that. And it's funny, now that we've been chopping sideways and we've been back testing all of these high peaks of 2021, people are starting to flip bearish now. They think we're going to crash. And that's fine. At the end of the day, black swan events are always, kind of going to be something that comes into wreck everyone's investment thesis. What can we do? It is what it is. Hopefully you have been sophisticated enough with your investment thesis. So if that was to occur, you have a way to react to that, right? You can't just completely deny you can't say that that's not possible. Everything is possible in the matrix. Do I think we're going to crash soon? No, but a lot of people have started to formulate that belief. But I just look at this by zooming out and going, this is great to see Bitcoin back testing this awkward double top we had and holding. This is really good. The only thing that doesn't look so good is the fact that we've been lower highs, lower lows for a long time now. We need this bull flag to play out. And if this bull flag plays out right here, this will be your 100K plus Bitcoin, because this has been so much sideways for an asset that typically doesn't do this long. This is shaping up to be an epic breakout. Now, the unfortunate side of this whole thing is that means it's the beginning of the end, right? This is the beginning of the end, because a lot of people started buying in over here when you should have been buying in all of this. People wait. So this has given us a second chance, just like in the last phase of the bull run, we had a nice long second chance. It's kind of like a third chance now. So of course we had this whole selling climax phase, but then we had the initial start of the return to bullish energy. And this could have all been an opportunity, right? And it's funny that we pivoted on the October solar eclipse. Well, guess what? We just had the October solar eclipse, and we have the data that I showed you in the last Red Pill podcast that points to pretty solid performance for Bitcoin during the month of October and November. So we should be in the final moments of this accumulation phase, and it's all triggered by a break above 70. 71,500 is really still the key level. When I hold my when I hold my cursor here, right at about 71,000, 71,500, you can see that was the key resistance for sure. It's undeniable. I've been showing you a lot on this chart too. I know you guys really like this chart. Now that we're here, let's check out a couple things, and then we'll bring up our moving averages and get to a more traditional style of technical analysis. So you see this white trend line? This has been a bastard lately, and it's because it's the golden pocket. So we did kind of peek our way into the 702 fib around this middle point of the golden pocket, but got a nasty rejection at the start of October right into our solar eclipse, which I showed you. It's not weird for that to happen. What would be weird to happen is after the October 17th eclipse, if we were to break lower. That would start showing us like, it's kind of weird. The only time I've seen this happen, let me show you, is over here. This correction that came in, but it was in September. And the fact that we had our September correction already into the earlier part of September, I feel like that's over. We had the same thing happen here. We had this correction into September. We also had the same thing here, correction into September. This is a cyclical pattern, correcting into September with this weird distributional top, and then once we get through October into November, shit starts getting fun again. So it was the same thing here. Look, correction during September, finished off the bull run. Correction into September, broke out into retesting prior all-time highs and even breaking all-time highs. So September is a weird time frame. We've made it through. We've made it through Rosh Hashanah, of course. We've made it through the fourth solar eclipse of our solar cycle, which is the beginning of the end. And you can see when I point to this fourth solar eclipse of the solar cycle, it was this deeper correction that we had in September, which came in 25 days after. And if we were to align that with what we have now, let me see, that would be October 27th. But it would be very weird for us to go lower because it's rare for October to be in the red. And I showed you that in the last red pill. We almost always have a green October. October is Like 7 out of the last 8 Octobers were bullish. And the only one that was bearish was during the bottoming phase of our bear market around a lunar eclipse and a lunar cycle. That's not the case this time around. Also, I showed how out of all the Octobers in existence since the genesis of the Bitcoin chart, the lowest October, the most losses we've had in October was 2%. So that would be like, historically, we are at 1% down now. So that would be like if we were closing off the month of October above 60K. And then we've seen what that follows with in November. Some wild moves. So notably this phase right here. Anyways, let's get into some of our moving averages and see what's up. I really want to check back in with the weekly 21 exponential moving average. I feel like that's an important level. Again, you have this falling resistance line, but it's really more about 70K. So I'm going to shut off all of these lines, and we're just going to see where our 21 exponential is, and we're good. Great. Okay, so we've backtested the 34 EMA on the weekly. We bounced above all of our key moving averages, and we still have the 13 above the 21 above the 34. I love to see this. So this is still in a bullish posture. Now, let's bring up our beautiful. So we've seen that we've accomplished getting back above the 8 simple moving average. We've been holding it as a support, and now the 8 simple is about to cross above the 21. And since the 21 and the 13 are pinching together, that means that this 8 simple by the probably next week or 2 more weekly closes will be completely back in a bullish posture where the 8 is above the 13, above the 34, and above the 21. That's what we want to see. And we still have the 8 above the 55, which is our wolf cross, and that's looking good too. Oh yes. Okay, so now we're on the 5-day chart. Next 5-day close is on the 16th of October, so that's this upcoming Wednesday. We had our wolf cross back above, so that's good. You zoom in, I know it's really coiled together, but you can see if you wanted to look at this legend on the side, we have the 8 on the top. That's beautiful. So we have the 8 above the 30, or sorry, 8 above the 13, 13 above the 21, 21 above the 34. The only thing is we want to get this 34 back above the 55, but this is all coiling together, and you know what that means? That means we've been very, 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 very low volatility. And when we're low volatility on an asset like Bitcoin, that means the next move is explosive. The only thing that would be kind of fucked up is if there was like that shakeout before the breakout kind of deal, you know, which sure, black swans are possible. But I showed you guys, even back in 1963 when Kennedy got assassinated in November, the market looked like shit for like one week. And then like 2 weeks later, it was higher than it was before he got assassinated. I don't want that to happen. Like I don't want I don't want anyone on this earth to be killed, right? But I just showed you with data that if they were to take a president out, it's not like it's the end times. It sounds insensitive, but it's not. I'm just telling you the facts of the way it all went down. So keep that in mind. Even if there was to be some crazy shit that went down in November, I mean, we could still be on a trajectory to make higher highs by December. I just don't see how we're going to crash right now. And the next FOMC is November 6th, the day after the election. So, of course, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw between now and, November 6th, the FOMC, and November 15th, that time frame, which I've showed you many, many, many times. The stock market likes to correct into that moment, but Bitcoin doesn't. Bitcoin in a solar cycle, especially, it just doesn't do that. So if it is to happen, it's like a 1 week thing, and then it could be bought right back up. You know, that's my take on things. Anyways, now if we can get a 5-day closure above 65,500, that would be very, very solid. And this looks like a W playing out as well, where we have our W with the double bottom followed by the retest of the neckline. That would be another measured move that would break us into price discovery. So we're super close. Now the 3 days, we're seeing a little bit of problems here, even though we've had 1, 2, 3 going on 4 3-day green closures. I kind of anticipated we were going to get a correction after all these green 3-day closes that we got in the month of September after that recovery post-September new moon. So this was unhealthy to see this many. But again, same story. We have all of these key moving averages coiling up together. It will just take a break above this level around 66K and we should start looking very solid. 2 days, not much of a story. Daily's looking fine, although these rejections at the 200 simple aren't great. Right now, it's less about these moving averages on the shorter time frames and more about the larger. 2 week is looking good. We got a 2 week close next week. So if Bitcoin, keep this in mind, you should write this down. If Bitcoin can clear 65K next week, which is nothing, right? It's like 3%, 4%. Yeah, if Bitcoin can get above 65, that would look very good, because this resistance that we've been getting here, which was a prior support for all these candles in Q1 into Q2, lately in Q3 leading into Q4 have been a resistance. That's not great. So we want to break that. We want to get back into the 66K territory soon. And that's why the updates that I've shared, I've said, if we can get back to 66K during October, that would be looking pretty positive. And also, I mean, that would be nothing for us considering October's performance, typically very, very bullish. Now let's move on. Okay, well, one last thing I should talk about is downside targets, because if Bitcoin is to drop, we still have this key chart. I would want to look for, I'm going to extend this just for now, because it has been holding this line. Maybe I could entertain this, but then we would be closing off October in the red, which is so rare. But I'll just show you, because I'm a technical analyst and I have to. Like, we have this obvious level here around the 382 fib level, 58K. I think we already got there though. Like, I don't think there's any point for us to go much lower. But yeah, I mean, if there was to be a push down, I would see that being a very strong support. And then also below that, the 236, if we were to start getting into like black swan levels. But I don't know how much more Bitcoin can take to the sell side. It's just been too sideways and too down and too boring and too low volatility. Like, this is done. People are shook out. They're gone. You know, retail investors have weak hands going back here, let alone now. So a lot of chop, you know, and I think that the chop days are behind us soon. So I just gotta let you know about the downside levels. Okay, I can't update much on ETH because it's kind of just still in the same conversation, but I do see a micro W pattern forming on the daily with a back test here at the neckline. It's a really shitty W, but it is a W. And there's your back test. You have your daily close, rejection at these key moving averages. You have your back test here on the neckline, clean. You want to bounce now and closing a daily above the 55 SMA. So that's your play. If ETH can now pop back above the 55 simple moving average on the daily and close above 2,500 per ETH, we're good. We should be in a recovery back to the 200 EMA, which would be a move up to the highs of August and right there at the 2,800 level. We would quickly get there, and then that would be a conversation to open up to this larger, more macro W pattern right here, okay? You see what I mean? Let me draw. If we pushed up, got rejected, came back right there, and then that would pop for the W, clearing your 200s, bringing you back quickly to the golden pocket. So that's a big move, actually, if you think about it, from where we're at now, about a 40% move almost. Let's look at XRP. Probably not much of an update here. Nah, not really much of an update here on XRP. Same story over and over again. Still chopping in phase 5 as I've mapped out with you guys a long time ago. It's getting a little bit boring now. I know you all feel the same. But we are now just right back where we were in April, May, holding the same exact lower end of this trading range. So naturally, as a technical analyst and professional trader, I can't update you because we're range bound. There is no difference in the Bitcoin chart. Therefore, there's no difference in the XRP chart. And I've told you a million times in a million different ways, we need Bitcoin price discovery to see expansion for XRP. And perhaps I could give a more detailed update, but I would need a break of 65 cents. So as long as XRP is holding 48 and below 65, there's just no real deep analysis I can share. And of course, I would like to pull things out of nowhere just to give you guys an update, but like I'm a real one and I can't lie and I can't fabricate shit. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. There is a positive to this falling trend line that was a prior resistance, which could be flipping as a support now with many, many back tests, but it's just not clean enough to be confident. So, yeah, but trust me, I will be giving a more thorough update once I feel that we're going to have some more development. But as long as Bitcoin's in this sub 70K territory, especially as it sits closer to 60K, it doesn't shock me that XRP is where it's at. And one thing that I did bring up recently is how sad it is that XRP is still responding so bearishly to any bearish news, right? Which is a sign of like what bear markets are like. You guys have probably heard about this. When you're in a bull run, the most bearish news can barely push you down. And if it can, it's only momentary. But when you're in a bear market, bearish news really, really sinks you. So when you're in a bear market and you get positive news, you don't see as much expansion. Well, that's what XRP's been like lately. Every update that's positive in this case has not led to a breakout. It's just been more chop. And every bearish news that comes out, such as this recent appeal, which I told everyone would happen, and it did, and now that it's happened, we've got this huge spike to the downside. It's like I've been telling people to not get so excited about this case because this case has only been feeling bearish with regards to price action, and there's been nothing bullish about it at all. Even this breakout here back in July 2023 wasn't bullish. We had a couple days, we could barely break $1. We were right back down to 44 cents in a couple weeks. You know, there's been nothing that's been bullish about this case on the surface has brought bullish price action. And everything that's been bearish about this case has brought bearish price action. That's bear market vibe, right? The only thing that will clear the headway for it is, in my opinion, if the entire alt market goes into expansion, and XRP will ride the wave of that, which is no different than over here, this moment. Remember, the SEC case started here, and look what XRP did during the very early phases of that. Super bullish, way higher than we are today. If you were to equate price, Bitcoin was at 66K over here. Bitcoin was at 66K just like a couple weeks ago, right? Like, I mean, within reason. So XRP should be back at $1.60 minimum. But remember, XRP was at $3 when Bitcoin was 19K. Now you have an even different picture being painted. So this case has absolutely suppressed the price in many ways, but the investors aren't stepping up. So the investors need to step up in order for this to expand more. Until then, it's just a trader's coin, and you could see it clearly in the charts. Let's move over to Reef. Whoa. Big move. So, wow, when did I cover this last? Whoa. I drew this out and it came down there. Like, holy shit. It literally came down to the 1618, guys. Like, this is what I teach you. I teach you about this 1618 and how this is like the most mind-blowing shit when you watch it come to life later. Whoa, crazy volatility once it had this breakout. 58%. Look at this candle right here. 60%. This candle right here. 75% in a fucking day, and then gets bought back up? What? Look at the volatility that's kicked in. There must have been something that's happened recently on this particular asset, some update. This is crazy swings. But anyways, you saw the drawing that I had. The idea here was considering pulling a reverse fib pull, which gives you the 1618, the golden ratio, to the downside. And I love doing that because it gives me downside targets. And if you had the downside target set around that red pill, it would have triggered. It's fucking crazy. That's 666. Look at how much it's gone up since that level. That would have been the quickest way to make 1,000% move, just by considering using the TA that I was teaching. So anyways, getting back to this, we had the spring phase, and that spring should be completed now. And the reason why I'm confident that it's been completed is because you've broke higher than this level, and the velocity of how it exited this trapped horizontal trading range that was coming in right here at about 0036. So you can see it would have been a support. Here it was a resistance. Here it was a resistance before a much deeper correction, and then we shot out of it. That's how springs work. So let me put a horizontal line on the screen to show you exactly what the hell I'm talking about, and it looks like this. Now that we broke above it and we back tested it with like maybe 2 weeks worth of trades, now this is looking pretty good, and the next line to break is pretty much where we're trading at now. And then you have this whole fib pull to consider. So that's what an SOS looks like. You broke above your 382 in the macro. You're now heading into the golden pocket, and this is like a macro automatic rally. Now, this has potential to make it back up to this distributional top right here, which would be somewhere in the ballpark of this 888 fib. So that's what I usually teach regarding upside. Now, what might have done this recently looks clearly something isolated to Reef as a project, because the overall market hasn't gone up 1,000% in the last, less than 50 days. This is isolated to this, and when you see this sort of chop with these tails to the downside and you don't see any of that activity prior, that's clear. This is tons of volume, okay? Tons of volume. And you could be like, pull up the volume signature then, right? I don't know if it'll even show me on this chart. Yeah, it's not even showing me, but I know there's volume there just by looking at the candles. That's why I rarely use volume volume indicator. I just don't really need to anymore after many years of doing this. But anyways, yeah, now that you've broken out of the 0.5 fib, that's a solid sign. And I'm not like against investing in this now, but if you watch that red pill when I last covered this, like you got the target and it slashed through it for like a couple of moments. So having your levels set in advance is super important. And as for where we're at now, let me double click on this. Wow, we have a lot of chart history actually. This is 4 years now. This is not like the best looking chart though. I gotta be super honest, because if you look from distributional top to how much it lost 99% of its value up until like a month ago. So it didn't pivot with the overall alt market, and it didn't pivot with ETH. It just kept going lower and lower and lower, and that's not like a positive thing. So this is 100 million% a shitcoin. I don't want you to be offended. You have to just see where I'm coming from right now. This thing went lower in a couple of months ago, you know? Why? Why did it go on to lose another 90% from this peak here in March? Like, there's not many of the quote unquote blue chips that have lost 90% from this peak to this start of September, let's just say. So this doesn't make me feel confident in the way that it shot out like this. That's also not confident. It's very unsophisticated trading in general. So yeah, if you bought this thing like and you're in profits, congratulations. Like nobody could take that from you. I'm glad. If you were somebody who took my TA lesson and applied it and you were interested in Reef and you were able to buy that dip, great. You're looking really good right now. But like my overall outlook on a chart like this is not positive. Like it's just too much movement, very emotional trading, mostly bots trading this and leverage traders. Lots of small trades probably also, considering it's a fraction of a penny, and it doesn't take much to push this market cap higher. Just doesn't. Now, on the other hand, if you were to look at where it's at now to retesting prior all-time highs, it's about 800%. That's good. That's possible. And price discovery for this is sure possible. But just remember, when we have moves like this, the RSI gets so cooked so quickly that you do tend to have a little bit of a rollover. So it's kind of hard for me to say that or predict that right now with the fact that Bitcoin's been sideways for so long. And if Bitcoin is to go up and break out into price discovery, then naturally I at least think this could make it to the 888. Like I said a little earlier in the analysis, this zone, around 4 cents. The entertaining price discovery for something like this is a little bit rough, a little bit difficult. We just have to check back in on it, I suppose. But I believe I gave some really good TA right there. And of course, the last podcast ended up coming to life, so can't get much better than that. Now we have Veracity. Oof, yeah, not looking so hot. So I'm going to be pulling my fib and extending it out, and you can see whenever the hell I covered this last, when I drew in this one horizontal trend line, it was pretty damn accurate because we did get rejected there again. And I suppose the reason I put that trend line there is to show that if we are to clear that level, that it's likely we will retest the outside of this falling trend line, which if I was to put this on like a 5-day chart, you would see has been in play for a long time. So since the beginning of the last bull run, alt season in November, by the way, we had this W breakout into the buying climax. Then after this really strange buying climax with two peaks, we came down into our selling climax, followed by what I believe here is your AR, your true AR, and now we're in the spring phase. And the fucked up thing about a spring phase is you could go deeper. Hence why I drew out these lines, because that would just be back testing all of these prior rejections, which isn't a couple, by the way. We're talking about almost 2 years of rejecting at that level. So if we were to have that go down, that would be how I'd see it playing out. But if we are now returning more to a bullish energy for the alts, this is kind of what you want to think about. Spiking back into a prior support, because that's typically how these trend lines work on a large time horizon, which this is fair enough to say it is, considering 2025 is right around the corner, and the last time we were retesting this was 4 years ago. I'm sorry, the first time we started building this trend line out was 4 years ago. That's what I meant to say. All right, so what is this? Okay, so an 80+% mid-cycle correction. That's not good. This is all like really awkward signs, but one thing I know of is, let me guess, because I'm good at guessing these, 1,700%? Okay. 2,800 fucking percent to get back to all-time highs. So if you're somebody who's interested in like this kind of stuff and you want to just play in the gambling casino, I'm not telling you what to invest in. I'm not telling you especially to invest in this. But if we are to have that alt season type of vibe, just consider that a 2,000% move is ahead if you're to just get back close to the prior all-time highs. Now, for the super conservative people, if you're to just get back to the top of the golden pocket or the 888, you're still close to 2,000, right? About 1,000 to 2,000% if you just wanted to play conservative. So that's fucking crazy, right? This is the kind of stuff that I'd be more interested in playing with venture capital at this phase of the bull run, because remember back here, guys, over here, it was like monkeys playing darts. If you can put your fear aside and buy these dips at the end of 2020, you looked like a fucking genius, because this thing went up 20,000%, okay? Like, it was monkeys playing darts. And nobody can say today that it wasn't, because people could be like, well, what if it was a good project with a good team behind it and good, dev team and a white paper that's solid? But it's like, okay, if that's all true, then why did this thing go on to lose 97% of its value over the following year? Also, why is it that it had a huge macro double bottom 3+ years later? Why is it still down over 95%? And also, why hasn't it caught up to Bitcoin, which is pretty much trading within prior all-time cycle highs? You see, this is all just shit coins. We're having fun right now before it all gets regulated. Don't take this personally. You didn't design Veracity. On the last project, somebody made this comment of like me saying something about SUI. It's like, you didn't make these projects. Why are you getting emotionally attached to them? When I share my analysis, it's my analysis. I'm not here to be right, but I have a take on things that's a little bit less about making quick wins and more about you developing a wealth plan that is generational. and we're playing this market very carefully because this is a fucking unsafe market. So sure, you can find analysts out there or influencers that want to shill you meme coins all day. Have fun. You're probably going to win once or twice, and then the next time you lose, you're going to lose it all. So what do you want to do? Do you want to become an investor or do you want to become a gambler? That's on you. I know what I represent. So don't take this personally, but there's enough that shows me here that these are not the safest investments to be making, especially in a world where regulation kicks in, and that's the end of all of this stuff. I don't care what dev team is behind it and this, that, and the third. None of that shit matters under the leadership system of the New World Order. They don't care. They're letting us have fun now, so have fun. Don't take it so seriously. Don't take it to heart. So we're moving on to Bonk. Speaking of nonsense. So yeah, we're looking at a chart that I've never looked at before. I'm aware of the memery, the way it's chopping right now. Yeah, this stuff is really, you got to be careful with it, but had a crazy move from the October solar eclipse. So anyone that knew about the eclipse cycles and bought that second solar eclipse of our solar cycle back in October 2023, you did the right thing, because this thing is now up 11,000%. And a lot of things have done this. Even Bitcoin has gone up substantially since that pivot. So yeah, this is not shocking to me how after that eclipse, this thing went crazy. But since December 2023, it's been chopping now for almost a year. So it's been making these big moves up, big moves down, big moves up, big moves down, and now it's just kind of trapped sideways. So let me pull a fib. Let me actually draw some key levels just to make some sense of what's been going on lately. Okay, these are the two key trend lines in general. I'm actually going to do this. This would be the smarter because it's the original move. So it's just swing high to swing low on this big move. We've had a couple of fake outs to the top clearly, and now that we back tested this 382 a bunch of times, which is that key orange trend line, to me that feels like this is ready to make a decision, because it's been sideways long enough. This thing's actually been sideways chopping longer than Bitcoin has. So yeah, this is ready, very close. And your next big target is up here, naturally the 1618. And we double click this and we could get an even more accurate level that's a little bit higher. And that would be this 4236. If we're going to move up again for this project, it's likely that that's the end of the ride, which from here is like 400%. Yeah, so like I wouldn't even really put too much. I don't think this has too much more to go. But you know what? I will be honest, if we have a crazy alt season, I've seen things hit the 10 spot extension. I've seen things hit the 8 spot extension. I've seen it all. So meme shit coins do crazy things. But I would not entertain the 4236 on a logarithmic pull. That's a little too exaggerated. No, not even close. But on a linear I meant to say logarithmic, we would see the 1618 for sure. That should be only like 200% though. I don't even think that's that much to go. Yeah, 250%. So keep that in mind. This thing is getting pretty close to breakout, but you have to consider the levels. So I don't feel confident in any of these lower levels. I would just want to look for this M pattern that never turned into a true M, but it's like a weird double top, It's hard when you're looking at altcoins that are meme coins though, especially with such a limited chart history. But look at the way that it was trading before it broke out. It was almost 250 days of just loss. It lost 83% before it made this move. You know how many people wanted to experience that? Almost none. And I bet you everyone is buying it now. That's how retail moves. Like I just taught you such a valuable lesson with that quick explanation. This is what retail doesn't buy. This was retail panic selling, the market maker bringing this shit into the casino. This is retail going, fuck this. And then this is them, the market maker, injecting a little liquidity in their world. A little is probably a lot to you. And then it just shoots up, and then they start pushing the FOMO, right? It becomes sentiment after that. Then everyone's like, oh, I wish I was there. Why did I sell? What's going on? And then now they're buying it back at the top, way higher than it was. So yeah, be careful with this. I don't think we're going to have the same type of meme vibe that we did with Pepe or that we did with Shiba Inu in the next alt season. I don't know why I feel that way. It's an intuitive thing. I just think, like, sure, the Jesus coin and the Trump coin and all this, like, sure, it has possibilities for doing something, but you're going to have to be really in and out of this stuff. Like, it's not safe. It's not safe at all. It's very emotional roller coaster vibe. So yeah, I kind of got into a little bit of the upside target stuff with this, but we're working on such limited chart history. I'm not completely anti meme coins, by the way. I just need some chart history to work with. And now for my take on this, it's not worth it, because the way that it exploded up, the fact that I know everyone who's heard about it started buying it during this horizontal trading range, and they probably think it's going to repeat this move. I don't think that's the case. I think it will go much, much lower, and it's better to not buy tops. This is buying a top. Axelar, what's going on here? Okay, yeah, going to be a quick one on this. Technically, I could call that the full back test to this wick. We've gotten to the 382 recently and just rejected, so this thing is really close to breakout. Now, this is a chart that I'd be more interested in buying. Why? Because it's below the 382, and it has about a couple 100% up just to get back to prior all-time highs. And then also on top of that, it's already experienced quite a correction. At least I'm not buying all the way up, in price discovery. This is now come and back tested prior trading range. That's very nice to see. I'm still not sold on investing in this in particular, but I'm just letting you know in comparison to the last chart. Now with this 1618, you have a target all the way up at about $10. That is very possible. I'm not sure. About 1,000%. So that's not impossible by any means, especially with altcoins. I don't know too much about this project, but it does have the X on it, and we know we're in the year 24, year of the X, and we're going to have that vibe, I would like to say, all the way until technically the next Chinese New Year. But really what that X symbolism was most powerful with was the tie to the eclipses. The eclipse of April 8th and then the eclipse of October 2023 last year. It formed an X over the state of Texas. We talked a lot about that in older decodes. But yeah, this is good. This looks like it's setting up to recover off of this deeper correction. The fact that it's pushed back up to the 382, gotten a little bit of rejection, is not weird, because we have a couple of these sensitive points right there. And then once we could clear that, I mean, it's pretty much thin air, because this isn't a lot of time trading above this golden pocket. I mean, technically 50 days. It's nothing. So yeah, this could quickly get back into the golden pocket, especially I would assume if Ethereum could start getting back to like that $3,000 range. So this isn't the worst thing I've ever seen, but still very, very I don't like what this is right here. I don't like this. This is so similar to what Bonk looked like. Just this perpetual sell-off for a year pretty much, and then pivoting exactly at that eclipse. Not looking good. None of this really looks good. This is too dramatic. Comes with baggage, you know what I'm saying? All right, we got BitTensor, Tau. Chart history going back to 2023, so still a very young project. Would you look at that after the October 2023 solar eclipse? Moved up straight to the March timeframe. Had a 80% mid-cycle correction. We retested this 236 a bunch of times and then shot out of it. And then this is lately looking almost like the reef chart, right? Kind of similar move. Getting back into prior all-time high territory. It's been over 6 months, so great. And we're getting very close to breaking out, getting into another leg up of price discovery. Let's see what's going on here. First big target, we have 1,129. And then let's look at the 423. No. So yeah, I mean, this could make it to 2,000. This could almost make it to 3,000 if it really wants to make a big move. 3,000 is in the cards in price discovery for this project. It's not a huge move up from here, but it's already done pretty fucking great. All things considered, if it could make it to 3,000, that would mean in the grand scheme of things, it's went up almost 7,000%. Because you have to count from the last bull market or the last bear market, right? And a lot of alts are still sort of in that noticeable bear market. This is clearly not one of those examples. But if we were to really pull it from the absolute kind of lows in these couple of days and go to the 4,236 or the 4,618, we're talking almost 8,000%. But this is why I wouldn't buy this right now, because it's like, how much more room can it go? Right? You need to consider the overall market cap conversation. And then I assume maybe this was tied to Reef, some basket of things, because of the way it bounced out and the energy. And now if it's not tied to Reef at all, please let me know, because there might be some energetics here that we need to talk about. Remember, what I've learned a lot with regards to Bitcoin and the solar and lunar cycles, it's very much isolated to Bitcoin. And it's not always the case for everything. Like, we can't consider that for the S&P 500, because the S&P is a basket of 500 companies. Bitcoin is technically one decentralized, technology, whilst the S&P has 6-7 companies making it have the market cap that it has, while there's 400 pieces of shit. No offense, but it kind of is what it is. It's the same thing with the NASDAQ. It's the same thing with the Dow. So we can't just go ahead and outright assume that all the solar and lunar cycle data that I've been sharing, particularly to Bitcoin, can be applicable to the Russell 2000. It's not ever what I've said, and it's why I've been very careful about when I teach that, especially in that free course that I released. So if this is not tied to Reef, it would be so cool to see what is the energetics in these particular two projects that have made this type of move lately, because I think it's eerily similar. Let me show you. And then we have to wrap today's podcast up. But basically, just look at here, this move, and then the chop, and this volatility here, this move at the same time, and the chop and the volatility. It's pretty fascinating. So let me know. I'm not interested in buying any of those, though. These are kind of things where if I was to play with them, we're talking 1% of my portfolio max. I'm already kind of bags packed, and I might maybe make a couple moves depending if there is some event that's to come in the next couple weeks around the election, sure. But generally, I mean, gotta let these things play out and not get too over invested. You know what I mean? It's not safe to over invest. You always have to do what's right for you, what's right for your family, what's right for your communities, and never just blindly take anyone's investment thesis and copy it and utilize it for yourself, because everyone's experiencing something different. So anyways, with that being said, things are looking pretty decent as we move into Columbus Day, the 42nd week of the year. I did a very thorough decode at the beginning of this. I hope you were taking notes. Please re-watch it if you haven't. I hope you enjoyed this Yom Kippur special. Again, please make sure you take notes on these podcasts, because they're packed with information, a lot of unscripted things that are being shared just off the top of my mind as we go. And I know we explored a lot of those today. And look out for this W pattern breakout for Bitcoin with closures above 64K. I already told you the importance of that 66K. That would be incredible if we can get there by the upcoming almost lunar eclipse later this week, and definitely would be in alignment with the Saturn retrograde analysis I've shared for moving into the month of November. So I appreciate every single one of you. Wishing you all a beautiful rest of your weekend in the Matrix. Much love.